Okay, so first of all, the curriculum map that I created for the Capstone project was for my biology, our biology classes here in East Chicago. So I took after science, decided where I was going to go. So my name is Sherry Duransky. This is my 11th year teaching. It's my 5th year teaching in the Applied Skills program here in East Chicago. Of those 5 years, I spent 3 of them at the middle school and got lucky enough to get to transfer with pretty much all of my kids to the high school when they went. So I've kind of had some of my kids for 5 years and it's been amazing. I graduated from Indiana University Northwest up here in Gary in 2008. And I have experience teaching in general ed and special education. Pretty much you name a grade, I've taught it. Everything except for, an emotional disabilities classroom. I'm a single mother of a gorgeous 8th grade girl who also has special needs. Um, and those have greatly affected her. The COVID has greatly affected her, and it's helped me also with my own kids here in the classroom. And for us, it's softball season starting, so that's how we spend all of our summertime. So that's kind of what I do. This is just me and my daughter here. We were at her, she plays travel softball. We were here. We got to go to University of Michigan and watch a softball game there while they were playing and go in and check out the dugout and everything. And let me tell you, it's immaculate. Oh my goodness. So that's me and that's my daughter Paige there. So um I chose this project for a couple reasons. After teaching in the district for 5 years, I've had time to get comfortable with the curriculum, kind of understand how the things were flowing. And, working with Heidi outside, I'd been hearing what other schools are doing. And it occurred to me that a lot of those structures that they have in place that are in the gen ed classes as well, we don't have those in East Chicago in our applied skills department. Um, we do not have a single curriculum map for any of our courses that we do here at the high school. Now we have biology because I created one. Um, I realized that our department needed to have the more structure and guidance as to what we teach and when. Currently, we follow the map guide that we have for N2Y, which is leaving gaps in our instruction. I've noticed that also over the course of the last few years that is not, N2I does not cover all of those content connectors by quite a ways. Although I will say I do like the math that I have here at the high school a lot better than what I had at the middle school band. Um, I became the department head here at the high school this year. I realized that in taking that position, I have the power to make the changes needed to make our program at the secondary level more successful, more rigorous for our students. Um, Taking on that responsibility and working with this group of teacher leaders has really given me the confidence to kind of step out more in that leadership role, which naturally in most of my other jobs I've always been in. So you guys have given me the confidence to go where I need to go. I do luckily now, being that I'm in the department that I'm in, most of my colleagues here in East Chicago have never made a curriculum map. A lot of them, I'm going to be honest, don't even know what one is. And that it breaks my heart to admit that, but I'm going to be honest about it. None of the other teachers in my department here at the high school have that experience. So I come from a background of gen ed and special ed at the elementary level. So I have created curriculum maps before. So I decided this was what I was going to tackle because there were huge gaps that needed to be filled here. Okay. Okay. So, um, the process that I went through was I had to choose which subject I was going to start with. We already kind of have a curriculum going for ELA and math, and a little bit of social studies, but our science was very lacking as a whole, as a department, and completely. So I chose the biology because it was the test on the IM for the 10th graders. Um, I ended up reaching out to the department head here at the high school and was able to get the curriculum map for biology. And I used that curriculum map with their standards to guide me creating my curriculum map with content connectors. Okay. I read through the document that I got because what I got from the biology teacher was a syllabus that had the quarters spelled out beautifully for me, which gave me an awesome example of what I need to be creating, and it helped me move forward. Yeah. So, um, so just kind of looking at the differences between academic standards and the content connectors. This was just an example of what I found as I was going through it. I like the fact that the content connectors break it down more by skill. I felt that that was really important. A lot of the teachers in my building, even in my district, probably don't understand to do that. We can all, as a gen ed teacher, I'm perfectly fine with the standards, but to have it broken down even into smaller chunks as a special educator, I think that really helps me hone in what I need to be specifically dealing with. Okay, so from doing this, I learned that content connectors require the same concepts, but they break them down into more manageable pieces. They give more accessibility to the standards for all my learners in my classroom, verbal, nonverbal, depending on their level of functioning. Also, those content connectors really help fine tune my instruction as a teacher, which is something I really like. Most of my kids can't, and with everybody that has kids like I do, they can't stay on task for a very long time. So being able to, get to the point quickly and to practice that skill with the content connectors giving me the direction was something I really liked finding out about. Okay. So then this is the link that I put in here for my curriculum map that I made. Heidi was gracious enough to share a couple templates with me, and this is the one that I ended up picking. I just went to the DOE website, and this, first of all, this map does follow what my high school biology department is doing. Okay, but it's also broken down with my content connectors. I've got it separated into semesters and quarters. And I went through and pulled out the skills that the students would be working on for this content connector, what type of assessment could be used, general vocabulary, and then I was able to find just as a starting point for the district itself, resources that were online on the state DOE website that take me to different projects.
When you get a second, will you reshare? I think it's just on your presentation. So all you have to do is go back down and just stop share and then reshare again.
Okay,
sometimes it'll get stuck. Yeah, that way we can see this.
Oh, that's what I see what that did. I see.
Yeah, it does that all the time. You're good.
Okay. Is that better? Okay, cool. Okay, so like I said, I discovered the DOE actually has some really good websites, and I know the push is to always expose our kids to what students out in general education would be exposed to, and these are projects and videos and labs that kids out in gen ed would be doing that our kids could do with simple modifications. Some of these I labeled as they were going to actually be doing making actual projects. I defined what the actual project would be to give more guidance for the teacher that would be using this. So, I mean, that's kind of what I did with everything. Now, the interesting thing that I did notice that was when I went through some of these standards, there are some Indiana standards that don't have a content connector, which I did not realize. So I learned that. I had to contact Heidi to talk to her about that, but she said, then you take that, that academic standard and you do what you can with it to make and find out the points that you need to do with it, because there isn't a content connector for every single thing. So, um, and this just keeps going on and on and on until I get to the end of the semester, which will be, so here's where I'm starting the second semester.
Mhm.
And I just color coded it to make it more easily accessible to everybody.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sherry, talk to me a little bit about a couple of things. How did you break it down? Because I see you broke yours down by quarter,
Mhm.
and that depends district to district.
Mhm.
Can you talk a little bit about how you decided to break that down and how that aligns, quarter to quarter, semester to semester?
I literally am following the curriculum map that the general education class is following.
Exactly.
I'm doing the exact process that they're doing. When I go to create curriculum maps with the rest of my team this summer, we're going to follow exactly what Jen is doing. So literally, maybe not day to day, but maybe week to week or month to month, I'm covering the exact same content that everybody out in general pop is doing.
Sure.
So I'm mirroring exactly what Janet is doing when I
Absolutely.
do that.
And that's, I think that is such an essential piece, is whenever we go to map, we lean on gen ed first. That is precisely the point. We look at what has been created. And I know we're going to hear this story from different teachers from different areas, but you hit the nail on the head, is that is how we approach it. We follow through with those maps and look at how we align. And to Heidi's point with your conversation with her, is if we have to break it down too. So we have to make it into those manageable pieces as well.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jerry.
Well, I was just going to say, my district doesn't have anything for ELA. We don't have math. We
Mhm.
don't have government or econ. We don't have any of that.
Mhm.
So now that I've done this, my director has decided that I'm going to teach my department how to make curriculum maps
Exactly.
for everything.
Mhm.
Even for the middle school, we're all going to get together over the summer. We're going to create the curriculum maps, because I'm going to be honest, right now, East Chicago is running off of my kids stay with me all day and they get pushed out for electives. We're not rotating for ELA by grade level or math, or we're not rotating like that at all. And there was some hesitancy to do that, but my team has come on board and we're going to have a go at it and see how it goes and try to make sure we work all those kinks out really well. Because I have a team that I work with that's really, really good at working with each other.
Exactly. And that
So
makes all the difference, right? Like having that collaborative relationship. And as you've spent the time working with this biology map, then that leads to a springboard to the point that you just made, is this becomes the roadmap in the process in which we are able to mirror for ELA, math, science, social studies, and more specifically, those applied units that you had mentioned earlier.
yeah.
Um, just having the guidance to do that and the permission to
Yeah.
do that as well. Um,
I'm fortunate that I have a director that is very supportive of me. Um, I would never want to work for anybody else. She's absolutely wonderful here, and the whole administration team, even in my building level, is just wonderful. It's whatever you want to try. Let's do it. So
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. And that that leadership is such an essential piece to understand the high expectations, to understand that the curriculum and the curriculum maps drive the process. And the beauty of a curriculum map is you can always revamp it. You can always go back to it, look at what needs to be adjusted, what needs to be fine-tuned, what other resources need to be added. And it's a process that some people don't like it because it's a never-ending story, right? But
yeah.
it leads to outcomes, and it gives the next steps in how to follow that. Thank you.
I know our ELA, or not our ELA, but our math and our social studies departments are in the process of redoing theirs.
Yes.
So I won't even get those till the end of the school year.
Mhm. Yep. And that's a great, I mean, I'm glad that you've already mentioned local leadership being so supportive, but I'm so glad that they are being so supportive of, aligning that together and then providing you all time to do that as well. So
Yeah.
such an important piece. Thank you, Sherry.
You're
I will
welcome.
open it up. We have a couple more minutes. If there are other questions,
Yeah, I'm not really a woman of many words.
that's okay. You're fine. We're right where we need to be. So, thank you for sharing that. And I appreciate you adding the examples. And one thing that stood out to me as you were displaying your curriculum map was your use of academic language. And that is such an important piece to
Yeah.
all of the work. But
I
we
have to say,
yeah, go
my
ahead.
experience in gen ed is what
Mhm.
pushes that. I do that every day in here with my kids. I will use
Yep.
the same vocabulary that they would get out in gen ed, and then
Mhm.
I'll flip back and forth between the two to give understanding, but the exposure.
Yep.
And that's something that I excel at, and I've always been like that. Even when I was teaching gen ed, I was doing that.
Yes. And that was yeah, it was exactly the best practice that we follow. We pull together and add in that academic vocabulary. We're exposing students to it. Of course, like you said, we pair it with core vocabulary, we pair it with an aligned student friendly language. But our students grasp that, and we owe it to them to have the least dangerous assumption to teach to it. And to use that language. So I so appreciated seeing that. And I know we'll see different versions of that, but I appreciate you adding that and sharing today. It was, I know that you will lead your district forward and helping guide them through that process. And I'm
Thank you.
excited to see what the outcomes are. And I know Heidi and I will be following up to see exactly what's next in that curriculum mapping for East Chicago. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Any other questions for Sherry? I should reach out and ask real quick. And feel free, I will pull up the Padlet. If you think of something, please add it. Just add the teacher leader's name that it goes with, and that way I can get it back to them and we can get that question added as well. All right. Yes, thank you so much for sharing. It was in the chat box. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
All right, so Jenna will be next. So what we're gonna do is we'll have about 3 to 5 minutes between each presentation to allow each person to pull up what they need. So Jenna, whenever you are ready, you can unmute, you can jump on. I know we're waiting for your team. I'm gonna check as well. All right, well, Stacy's here, so that's great. I didn't know if Megan was hopping on too, so.
She's supposed to be.
Okay.
Was
Well,
home
we
sick
have,
next week. I don't know if she's back. So
it's okay. We have a few minutes, so just take your time sharing. And for those of you who are still on, feel free to jump onto the Padlet, ask questions in the chat box. And I should always remind everyone that the presentations today, I'll add that to the chat box today. If you want to pull up Sherry's or Jenna's curriculum mapping presentation, they are online and available to you so that you have those examples locally. So we'll wait just a couple minutes, that way you can see if Megan hops on. If not, we are recording, so
okay.
I understand that life gets busy as well.
Yeah.
We'll just wait just a couple more minutes, and then you can have the floor. And while you do that, I will add the website to the chat box so everybody has that. We had some really great presentations this morning too. A lot of them revolving around inclusive practices at the primary level, but lots of takeaways to be thinking about your own schools and classrooms. So that will be all right. So I added that there, and then what you'll see when you look at that, you'll see if you scroll down, you'll have all of the general resources, but you'll have each presentation, each teacher's name, their presentation title, as well as a quick link to have access to their specific presentation. So everything is there for you. Right. Okay, Jenna, you wanna, if you feel comfortable, we'll make sure it's just a couple minutes. So as soon, if I see Megan hop in, I'll make sure that she's added. But the floor is yours. I'll hop onto mute, so it's all yours.
Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. So you'll hear a little bit of repeat from Sherry's, but I am doing biology curriculum mapping. So you'll hear a little bit, like I said, of a repeat of Sherry's, but we did things just a little bit differently. I am Jenna Barton. This is my second year as a 9th through 12th grade functional skills teacher. Before that, I was a resource room teacher, and then I've also done some elementary, some paraprofessional things. So I've kind of been all over the board and been exposed to a lot also. I work at Tippecanoe Valley High School, which is really cool because it's also the high school that I graduated from. So I love it here. A lot of the staff is the same, or at least I graduated close to some of them also. So, and then our corporation is Tippecanoe Valley High School. So, where's my, okay. So we started, I guess 2 years ago, we were selected as a model site. Project Success really helped us open our eyes to the idea of inclusion. Previously, with the other applied skills teachers, they would be out in, sorry, the lights just went off. They would be out in what is the word? Elective classes. And then from there, when the new certificate of completion came out, we knew that we had to get kids in gen ed classes and core classes as well. So we started with the biology curriculum because the kids were already taking that kind of as a practice run for the kids that are now sophomores. And so that's what we started with. Our team consisted of the principal, vice principal, instructional coach, a special education director, gen ed teacher, and myself. It's important to note when you're starting things like this, make sure you're starting with a teacher that's comfortable doing this and that you're comfortable working with. The teacher that I'm working with is Mr. Hutton. Him and I have worked together the last couple of years, and I was his student and a student helper keeping volleyball stats and that type of thing for him. So we obviously collaborate really well together and bounce ideas off of each other. And then not so much this year, but in last year before COVID, our schedule just really worked together, or worked to allow us to work together easily. So as the steps that we took to where we're at, we set up meetings in the summer to create the inclusive curriculum map. We focused on local power standards and the IM blueprint only, so that we had those like core standards that we decided were important that aligned to the IM testing. And then from there, we aligned the standards to the curriculum connectors. We changed the essential questions to include wording from the content connectors. We got rid of only a lot of vocabulary and only focused on the essentials that were covered in the content connectors. And then we also changed the learning targets that were aligned. So I'm going to show you an example of kind of where we took things from and then what we changed it to. This is the gen ed biology curriculum map. At the top, across the top, we have Dufour's 4 essential questions. That's kind of our drive here at school. We use that a lot. So then I believe it was our instructional coach helped create this curriculum where we have, if there's any prior grade level alignment, we attach the standards here, and then what standards, that we would focus on, and then took essential questions or driving questions and vocabulary. The SWABATs students will be able to, the learning targets, then list the assessments, the IEP or ILP accommodations, and then the resources. The ones that are clicked or that are highlighted blue are hyperlinked to our shared file or the Indiana Standards website. Kind of as an example here, this standard in green is one of our local power standards that the biology team has chosen to do that or to use that one. And so then you can see all of the material there. So from that, we really only changed, or we added to the inclusive curriculum map, the content connectors, and then we took the power standards and aligned those with the with the content connectors. So for example, you can see here, the standard was B23, and then it's broken down into, I think, 2 different also, only on here is 1 picture, but we took the content connector and then then added just the essential questions from the content connector. We eliminated a ton of vocabulary. change the wording in the in the learning targets. And then you'll notice that the columns assessment and modifications are not added to. That's kind of my goal for this summer, is to add those things in. What are some assessments that we used for our students as assessments instead of modified things, or what was some modified assignments we used. This year I was fortunate to have students that really excelled in biology. I have two juniors and a sophomore in there, and they're doing awesome. They are learning and they are picking up on the things we're doing. And so I haven't really had to create new assessments for them like I might in the future with some of my other kiddos. So that's our goal for this summer and next year. We are also fortunate to have kind of a homeroom time, or we call it Viking Success. We're the Tippecanoe Valley Vikings. So we Viking Success, it's 30 minutes per day set aside for, it used to be for RTI and things like that, but now we use it just as a homework time for the kids. Most students no longer have study hall, so they have that 30 minutes set aside daily. So that allows me time to pre-teach or reteach some things with my students. It allows more time to take quizzes and work on assignments and that type of thing. So kind of our next steps is that we're going to continue modifying that curriculum and changing the curriculum map as we go along. I want to add some modifications for students with more significant intellectual disabilities. And we're using a new curriculum that we purchased last year, but for this school year with an AWS grant. The Attainment Company Explore Biology is the title of that series. And I attached a couple pages just to kind of show you what we're using. And so each chapter, has about 8 vocabulary words. It's split into 2 pages, and there's a picture and the word and then a definition. And then at the bottom of each, it says find the word. So it kind of changes the wording a little bit, and they have to write down the word. So there's 2 pages of that usually, and then there is a kind of a chapter reading type thing. This is just one example from the first chapter, and it's just a shortened paragraph and focus, short and sweet, to the point, so the kids understand the topic that the gen ed students are learning, but it might just be a good summary for them. And it also has a visual on every page. And then at the end of the chapter is a short quiz that is great. As I have a student that's virtual that was attempting to do some online courses through a program, but it just wasn't working. So I've been sending these home, and it's worked really well for him to just, you read it, read the passages, and then you answer the questions. And there's usually like 7 questions, and then the last one is a little writing prompt that they're given. Our next steps for inclusive practices, we're going to begin planning for the next classes to create inclusive curriculum maps. And those 2 classes are world history and US history. Actually, tomorrow is what I'm going to spend my day doing with those 2 teachers. And we're going to do this very similar to what we did with biology. So some personal discovery I've had throughout this process of not necessarily creating the curriculum map, but being in biology with Mr. Hutton, is that the students are they are learning the same information, but they're also gaining that information. They're retaining it and understanding it. It's meaningful to them. They're learning and staying right on track. Also, Mr. Hutton is great about calling on my students, because he likes to cold call a lot, but calling on my students, making sure they understand and leading. And if they don't quite get the right answer, then he leads them, in a roundabout way to the answer, just like any other student in the classroom. It's wonderful. And then also that we've noticed when functional skills students are in gen ed classes, the interactions are very natural. It doesn't like, oh, I have to work with that kid or anything. The gen ed students just accept them and work with them and include them and help them when they need to. So it's just been great. And I greatly appreciate the students, even in biology this year. This year there's like 4 girls and the rest are boys. And of course they're freshmen and they're squirrely, but even those boys have accepted my students and are just really working with them. So I really like that. And then there's my contact information. I did include my cell phone. I don't mind text messages or phone calls at normal times of day. But yeah, so there's my contact information.
Perfect. Thank you, Jenna.
Yeah.
As always, fantastic job.
Thank you.
And something that the Tippecanoe Valley High School team should be so proud of is the fact that they've pulled together such a great team to approach this and been really intentional. I mean, John volunteered to do this a couple of years ago to look at inclusive practices and really was, the tipping point for much of these conversations, curriculum mapping, collaborative meetings, has been inclusive of including you in those planning meetings, pre-COVID when you could be together in that fashion. And then also Stacy, and I saw Stacy was on as well as the instructional coach, just providing that guidance and that support from, an instructional expert, a curriculum mapping expert to help just guide the process. And I think that is so important. Do you want to talk a little bit about, and we're talking the pre-COVID because you had such impactful meetings with the biology team. Do you want to just describe that a little bit more for the group? Because I think that's impactful.
Yeah, so we did PLC meetings daily, we would meet, I think that team would meet twice a week. I would go 1 day a week. One day was focused on biology, the other on, I don't know, maybe earth space science, I can't remember. Anyway, so I would go to the biology meetings, and a lot of times we would look ahead at the chapter, and we would some days just look at the assessment that was going to be at the end of the chapter and decide what needed to be taught in general, like in the biology classroom. And then we would go through and make modifications so that it would also fit in for those lower functioning students that needed that. So in the last 2 years, we've really had high functioning students in there. So it hasn't been like, next year and the year after, we're going to have to really bring it down. And so that's where that curriculum is going to come into play, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And being intentional about looping in it and, that attainment helps add those vocabulary, visuals, and etc. So I think that's really important as well. If anyone else has questions, please jump in. The other piece that I would love to kind of hear from you, I know you've established your next steps and in fact have tomorrow kind of blocked off for that. What are some takeaways? You've spent 2 years really engaged in this work, and you're going to bring it to the larger group tomorrow. What are just some general highlights, takeaways, best practices, like basically any tips that you have?
Sure. Oh, I don't know. One thing I've super enjoyed being in classes, because that's the one major thing I miss from being in the resource room, is being in those classes. So it's been great to get out and work with the general population too. And just really seeing those kids blossom through all of this. I feel like they've really learned, and the teachers are great with it. I feel like we have a super accepting staff of inclusion, and so they've just really been helpful. Collaboration is a huge thing, whether it's a quick meeting in the hallway or if you have time to set aside. But I think that's the most important, is just collaborating with those teachers so that you're prepared most days to know what's going on.
Absolutely, thank you. And then last but not least, I know another aspect is, and especially thinking through world history, you really helped build your staff to go in and provide some supports. And I know that's not really the focus of the curriculum mapping, but any takeaways that you have for that, or tips that you had just helping kind of across the board communicate the curriculum map, communicate those expectations?
So it's been kind of flaky this year with world history. Just feel like we started out strong. I had a para in there daily, and then we've kind of, that para left, and then I was able to put a para in there 3 times a week, but then I feel like the modification part kind of fell off. So the kids are just kind of more listening now, and I don't know how much they're really, so I don't feel like it's been as good this year, but just communicating is making sure that my support staff is just aware of like the expectations, and that we do have high standards for them, and the students need to, learn as much as possible and participate as much as possible. And so I don't know if that's the best answer, but yeah. So
Okay, no, it was great. Thank you. And I put you on the spot, so
no, that's
I
okay.
appreciate you jumping in and sharing that. So yeah, number one, thank you for sharing that. And thank you for consistently going back to your map and you're reviewing and revising and really taking note. I know as a team, you looked at your map from the year prior to this year, 1920, and then you kind of aligned and revamped over the summer your 2021 maps as well. So I know that that is a constant review for your team, and I think that's something to highlight here as we go back and we review and we make those adjustments. And to your point around the assessment piece, we go back into and look at what assessments need to be added or what needs to be aligned and how can we add those modifications. So kudos to that, and kudos to really being intentional in that process. Anything else or any other questions from the group? Yeah, Sherry, floor's yours.
I have a question. Jenna, how does that, your curriculum looks like it's got a lot of reading involved with it. How is that working with your lowest functioning students?
Sure, good question. I don't know yet. I don't have those low function. Honestly, my students are high enough that I haven't used the curriculum yet to its extent. I'm really only using it as a support for, like I said, a couple of virtual students right now, and they're able to read it and do it well enough. So I can't really attest to that yet. Next year, I will have students that will need that curriculum, so I can answer that in a year, but I'm sorry, I don't know now.
No, that's okay, because right now my building is split between kind of like ability level, and
Okay.
I have all the non-readers.
Okay.
So yeah,
We have Sherry, just a couple of districts that are using attainment for several different things. So I can put you in contact with a couple of other districts to talk to that. And Jenna obviously will have that to share out for next year.
Yeah.
And one thing about attainment is it is heavy on the visual supports.
Yes.
So that would be an area that's added in as that modification, and then how we approach the instructional techniques would be, diverse based on those student needs. But it is like that example that you showed with the vocabulary, with the picture, that is the foundation of how it is set up.
We do use it a little bit in world history for one of the lower students, and my support staff that's in there reads it to him, and he seems to understand what's going on, or he's a really good guesser. So I think he reads higher than we think he does. I'm not 100% sure on that, but yeah, so he's able to do it, but she's reading it to him.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, like to add to what Sherry had in hers, is that link to vocabulary and how essential it is to assure you have pulled out those essential vocabulary words. I know you looked through each one of those to assure that it was aligned and that you had the right ones, and kind of modified it down to a level that works for your students. But it's still directly aligned to gen ed, and those are still high expectations that you have for your students in understanding that vocabulary and knowing that that's access to the curriculum. So another kudos to both of you for having those pieces embedded within. All right, Jenna, thank you so much. Amy Zimmer will be up next. We're going 3 for 3 on biology, which is why I love this group, because I know how much this group has worked on it. So Amy Zimmer will be up next from Penn Harris Madison. We'll take just a couple minute break for everyone, stand up, stretch, and we will kick things off with Amy at about 2:10. All right, so whenever you are ready, I'll hop off video. All right. Can you see it okay, Amy? You're
Yes,
good to go whenever you're ready. Yep, you're good
Thanks
to go.
for being flexible. Alrighty, so I'll go ahead and start my capstone celebration that I've titled Mapping Our Way with an Ability Inclusive Mindset. So I am Amy Zimmer. I am a teacher at Penn High School. This has been my home for 13 years. Over the course of my career, I've had the unique experience of teaching at all 4 grade levels, which has been a tremendous asset, especially as we look at the vertical alignment and just at the development of students. At Penn High School, I teach self-contained classes. I teach 2 blocks of life skills science and 2 blocks of applied biology, as well as carry a caseload of students with disabilities. Alrighty, so according to the project success Capstone action plan, I went ahead and decided upon curriculum mapping, and that's on that next slide. I've kind of outlined the goals that I had on there, had some pretty lofty goals, ambitious goals, but I'm proud to say that we've accomplished a great deal this year. The rationale for the goals on this slide was to obtain greater access to the general education science teachers. And it's just been a very foundational year for me. I've always taught the self-contained classes. I've had interactions with general ed teachers as I share classrooms with them, maybe when they have a prep period or the room is not being utilized. And they have been tremendous over the years with letting me have access to equipment and materials, but there was little to no collaboration as far as the teaching and learning process. But this year, that has changed. The shift has been going towards our goal of co-teaching next year. And so having the access to the biology teachers, being part of the PLC meetings, working together, making rubrics and common assessments, and identifying those strategies that are needed to really offer differentiated instruction has been just a tremendous process. We actually are looking ahead, and we created a PLC template so that we can be assured that this will continue to be a collaborative effort. All right, Meredith, if you want to keep on going. Awesome. So during our PLC meetings, all the teachers in the biology PLC are very active, they're engaged. We share quite a bit as far as the professional developments that maybe we have gone through, some of the content expertise, some of the special maybe kind of assignments or labs that are being done with students. It's a really nice take and share kind of format, and just work together for the benefit of all learners. And so we're excited to see where this next process takes us. Just having that whole comprehensive systematic view of how to collaborate using the inclusive practices framework. All right, next. So as we embark on the co-teaching biology classes next year, I wanted to ensure that my 2018 biology curriculum map was reflective of the collaboration between the gen ed teacher and myself being the exceptional education teacher. And so I was looking for some input, and I reached out to one of the student teachers that was here doing his experience. And the conversation started off casually. Hey, do you know anything about the content connectors? Maybe I heard about it. And I said, oh, well, let me tell you about it. And so we got to talking, and he was a real champion. And he said, yeah, I'd like to help you update those. And I said, great, because I can use your biology expertise and your subject knowledge. And then you can take a look at what I have and how we unpack those content connectors. And, you can give us a scientific, look and approach at how we can unpack these content connectors. And he was very grateful for the experience. It was a great process. And fortunately for us, he was hired as a biology teacher next year, and he has agreed to co-teach with me next year also. So through this learning experience, it really was worth it, because now we have this partnership that will carry on for next year. He's already familiar with the content connectors and the unpacking process. And so we'll be able to implement these, as well as integrate those specifically designed instruction techniques, as well as, work on high leverage practices as teachers. Meredith, if you want to go ahead and click on the biology map, you can kind of take a look at how we set it up. So we have the SEPS goals, the science engineering goals, as well as the biology standards. Those are standards 1 through 5. And those are not necessarily taught in order. And so we just went ahead and thought it would read better and have better accessibility if those were in order of the way that they were presented on the Indiana Department of Education website. So it started with those science and engineering goals. And you can see that the standard is on the left, the approaching standard is on the right at the top. And then those bulleted points, those are the unpacked approaching standards. And then if you scroll down a little bit more into the actual standards, 1 through 5, go down a little bit lower. There you go. Great, thanks. We did the same thing for the standards. The standard is on the left, on the right is the content connector, and then below that is that unpacking, those benchmark objectives that we would hope for our students to achieve as they work towards mastering those content connectors. So I was very blessed that he took on this project. I told him, I said, this would be something great to put in your portfolio for your student teaching experience and pass this along to some of the students in your class as well. So let's kind of focus on this mindset shift. Preparing the curriculum is one thing, but then making sure that every student feels like they're important and they can succeed is another. Diversity is a natural part of life. Proximity is a great way to start the process. And by developing that sense of awareness and promoting the understanding, we can transform old places and create new places. And so I'm very honored to work with very professional colleagues that have a passion for disability awareness. John Gensick and Lainey Bristow and Scott Shellhart, just to name a few. They have been instrumental in building in those conversations naturally in their classroom through a genetics unit, through conversations with our STEMpathy program, and just having that repertoire of vocabulary available to them, that safe space of answering questions so that they can gain a better understanding, has been vital through this whole process. So I'm very grateful for their leadership in these areas. So to collaborate and include, and to believe and behave and act like everyone belongs. Here at Penn High School, we have a Take 3 motto. It's take care of yourself, take care of each other, and take care of this place. And this truly has been the case in this mindset shift towards co-teaching. Alrighty, let's go ahead and shift to the next slide. Alrighty, so by using this ability inclusive mindset, we are intentionally planning biology for students of all abilities. Access has not been an afterthought. It has been at the forethought and the forefront of this movement for us. We've implemented a program called STEMpathy, which is out of the Nora Project out of Chicago. And this program teaches empathy, sparks friendships between students, and promotes an inclusive school environment through STEM-based activities. So if you look at the pictures there, you can see two students. We were working on a STEM-based activity where students created a boat, and through ingenuity, they created a boat that would withstand wind resistance and it would float and perform in a couple of other ways. And students, were able to work together. We went to the nature center. We had open dialogue where we shifted the conversation from diversity found in nature to diversity in humans. And so it's been a great process. We had professional development from last summer to now. We're continuing with our professional development because there's just so much to learn. And the culmination of all of this professional development through Project Success and STEMpathy has really guided us to the highlight of these collaborative efforts and this curriculum mapping. So it's brought it to a very three-dimensional, accessible approach. So let's go ahead and take a look at the next slide. This is our baby, if you will. So I'd like to start off by sharing a video with you. The person that did the interview is one of my students and one of our counterparts in the radio and TV elective course. Took the pictures, took the video, and put it all together. And so you're going to go ahead and take a look at a prototype of what we're calling the biology sensory wall. And then I'll tell you a little bit more about it after that.
What is the biology sensory wall? Well, I am really excited about this biology sensory wall. The biology sensory wall is going to be a one-of-a-kind learning tool for all students. It is going to include the biology standards and the content connectors, so it's a systematic, multisensory way to teach science. So all students will be accessible to this project, and there's a whole bunch of teachers working on it. We have teachers that are science teachers or construction teachers, robotics staff, and the robotics team. The kids working on Mission to Engineer are working together to build this learning tool, and we're building it and designing it from the bottom up using the universal design for learning. So all students will have equal access, and it'll be so hands-on and fun. We cannot wait to try it out. And I just want to put a special thanks in there for the administration for their support, and also to the PHM Foundation for giving me a grant that I can use to underwrite the beginning phase of this project. It's going to be awesome. Students from years to years to come are going to enjoy this project.
All righty. So you saw a prototype of what we're referring to as a biology sensory wall, and you think, that really wasn't a wall. Well, you're right. We didn't design it that way, but we didn't know what else to call it. So the biology sensory wall is going to be this portable ADA spec rectangular cube unit that has 12 panels, and those panels can slide out. They're very versatile. Some of them are going to have felt, some of them are going to have dry erase boards, magnetic dry erase boards. We've incorporated the expertise of our speech and language pathologist and OT and PT so that we can have switches so that it'll have assistive technology built in it. Again, so students who are in a life skills science class all the way up to early college academy biology will have access to this sensory friendly learning space. It's portable, so it can go in the elevator, it can go upstairs, downstairs, from one classroom to another. And what I really think is so cool about this project is our vision has been shared to staff and students alike. So you saw the title page, the biology sensory wall. If you go ahead and go to the next slide, Meredith, you can see that This was designed by a graphic design student. We emphasized the smaller part of wall, the all, with a collage of students of all abilities. So I'm very proud of Taylor for making that. This is going to sit on top. We have the technology students that were given different pictures of skulls and fossils. And then the technology students went ahead and used the 3D printer, printed them up. Then they went for sanding and painting to the advanced painting students. So we just have so many different students and teachers using their talents and resources and expertise to put this all together. Arkin is a senior on the robotics team, and for the past 6 years, the subgroup of our robotics team 135, that's the mission to engineer team, has taken upon themselves to have a project for the accessibility to one student. It's been one student per year. And Arkin's concern was that was being limited. He wanted to expand that to a school-wide approach and wanted to help make Penn High School a more inclusive learning environment, and to let everybody know that robotics just isn't about robots. And so with his leadership and some grant money that I received last year, just perfectly married these programs and these opportunities. And so the money is going to be reinvested and go back into students, to where 900 plus biology students during their freshman year will have access to this learning resource. So on to the next slide. It's been a very groundbreaking year, a very productive year. But our work has just begun. I can't imagine a more amazing year than this year, even during the pandemic. But next year, I think, is going to be even more amazing. We have been selected as a model classroom site. We're going to continue our work with Project Success in Cohort 1. Fingers crossed, Cohort 2, have more opportunities for professional development through the Project Success Summer Institute and STEMpathy Club. Fingers crossed, the foundation continues to like our grant submissions, and we'll have some extra funding to underwrite these programs as well. And then, of course, co-teaching next year. You can advance, Meredith. Thank you. This slide, I think, makes my heart the happiest. The partnerships this year have just been overwhelming. The Biology PLC for embracing me and including me. All the academies within Penn High School, including the administration, Penn Harris Madison School Corporation, the foundation, and the projects that we've been involved with, as well as the robotics team, have been so supportive, and they've really embraced that mission and supported us through the process. But I would be seriously remiss if I didn't extend my personal gratitude to Meredith and Heidi for their exemplary work with Project Success. Your mentorship, dedication, and professionalism has inspired me to strive to the highest standard possible. And I appreciate your modeling and all that you have given to the program, your heart and soul. And just know that you have made a significant difference. Thank you.
Thank you. You definitely know how to pull at the heartstrings there at the end, so I appreciate that. And phenomenal job, and just an accolade to the entire district. One thing that's really important is Amy represents our secondary team, but we have members in other breakout rooms, Megan Donahue, and we have 2 primary teachers who presented this morning around universal design for learning, around behavioral strategies. So such just a great involvement as a district, just jumping in and really setting such high expectations as educators, embracing those expectations, aligning that to practice. I mean, this is evident in Amy's presentation, every single aspect that she intentionally designed and planned for um, from the ground up, like the collaboration with her student teacher or the student teacher, such mentorship, but yet look at what he's going to be able to take away and implement in partnership with her next year. And then, you know, just helping bring together an entire team. So thank you so much for sharing and jumping in. And thank you to Rebecca, and I know Beth is on as well, and Gina. Just thank you for jumping in and being so involved this year as well. Um, and I know that you have worked so hard, and we met several times trying to figure out exactly what Amy and I, what we were going to focus on for this year. And there were so many awesome and amazing opportunities, but pulling together that biology piece was a real important, you know, first step. And I know that there are several next steps involved. Amy, any other quick takeaways or any questions from the larger team as we move forward?
The director at Penn Harris Madison, and I just wanted to say, first of all, we're always proud of Amy. She always does fabulous work, and she didn't say that the grant money she has is because she was our district teacher of the year. And so she got that money from the foundation and decided to use that for more inclusive practices. We've been pretty inclusive in Penn for over 30 years now. So I just want people to know that it's always a work in progress. We're always growing and creating more fabulous projects like the one Amy and our other staff members have done that we've seen today. But gosh, Meredith, we really appreciate your work over the years. I've been around for a long time and remember when Project Success started, and your work has been incredible, and we hope in some form that can continue because it's meant a lot to us as a district and just as a state, I think. So we're going to keep on keeping on. No matter how or where or when or how we have to do that, we sure will. So thank you for all your work. And Amy, always a great job. I'm always proud of you.
Absolutely. And pulling together just a great team. And really, you know, we talk about high expectations, but this is an example of how you set that and how you build those foundations. So I'm appreciative of the entire team. And I want to be mindful also of time. So thank you all for sharing. And we have one more presentation, and that's Kara. So Kara, if you wouldn't mind, you want to test audio real quick?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yep, perfect. Okay. And what I will do is let you jump in and share. And then we'll have a little bit of time afterwards that we'll pull together as a group, and any questions across the board for any of our speakers today or any of our team members. I mean, as we have leaders on as well, I know many of you may have to hop off, but to ask cross-district questions too. I think that's really important. So I will be quiet, Kara, so that you can have the floor. I will let you share.
All right, thank you guys. So I was supposed to be presenting on curriculum mapping, but I kind of took a different direction, which I'll explain that in a minute. Let's start off with who I am. So my name is Kara Westerman. I am the Essential Skills teacher at New Palestine High School. I have two wonderful children. I have a 10-year-old son, Luke, and then my daughter will be 7 next Wednesday. So I have an almost 7-year-old daughter. I have been working in Essential Skills for 11 years now. I started my teaching career in Cincinnati, Ohio, and then I moved back to Indiana. I'm from Greenfield, Indiana, so the neighboring school right next to us. I came back after our son was born. Before that, though, before I started my teaching career, I was a job coach for adults with disabilities, and then I became an essential assessment specialist. And then after that, when I decided to become a teacher, I was a classroom assistant while I was in grad school. So I had lots of good experiences to help me learn and grow and become the teacher I am today. So my goals for this year. So I originally had hoped to present on curriculum mapping in math and English, and I have done a lot of good work on that so far. Meredith and I have been working together on it for a while now, but this school year with COVID, I'm sure you guys have all experienced this, I had to kind of put a pause on that. We went from 7 bell periods to 4 bell periods with 9-week quarters, and all of the high school teachers didn't have their prep bells. So for this school year, we did away with our PLCs, and it was just really difficult for me to try to meet with the regular ed teachers to align my curriculum map with them. So I decided to present on my 4-year plan that I have created to help meet the certificate of completion. So I've outlined 4 years of what our students will be taking, which teachers they'll be working with. This school year, I finally finalized a big project I had worked on with one of my classroom assistants. Actually worked a lot with me on this, but we created a filing system of all of our classroom assignments that we have modified for over the last 3 years, so that, you know, when we are in biology class, I'm able to pull the notes that I've already modified and it's ready to go, and the assistant or whoever's, you know, in that classroom, myself, we can quickly go in there and have that all ready to go. So we had spent quite a few months getting it all organized and ready. I had kind of just thrown things in a crate and kept collecting everything that I had made, but we finally got it nice and organized. So I do have, my future goals are to continue finalizing my curriculum maps, and to continue collaborating with those teachers and making sure that the curriculum maps that I have created for math and English and biology and social studies as well eventually, that those all align with those regular ed maps. And then my next hope is that I can start, now that I have finalized a 4-year plan, I create more of an 18 to 22 program for those students who are staying past their 4 years of high school. So that's kind of where I'm going after this is finalized. So I wanted to first share some of my biggest challenges that I have encountered through this. We have been going to out classes and kind of following the process of the new certificate of completion program for the last 3 years. But it was really hard to find time to collaborate with teachers and find that time to work with them, and make sure I was getting, you know, assignments ahead of time, and I was able to modify them for the students. So, and I think this is, all of us can understand this. Time is always our biggest challenge. I don't never have enough time to get things done. Also just creating and modifying the work to meet a variety of learning needs. And, you know, this year I've encountered, one of you guys had talked about with biology, and some of your higher students are in there. And next year you're going to have your lower students. Well, I encountered that this year. I had modified all my biology notes, and they were kind of meant for a higher population group. And then this year I had a group that couldn't handwrite notes. And so I had to change all of that. And we created some notes where they would glue pictures on as they were going through the class notes with their peers. So, you know, that's a lot of modifying and a lot of time. So I had a hard time getting a lot of that done. And then, like I said, organizing all my materials. I struggle with organizing. I'm always, you know, trying to do 50,000 things at once. And so I was throwing things in a big pile and hoping to organize it later. Last night, I actually was working on organizing my computer because I have, you know, biology documents that I've created in all different places. So that has been a challenge, you know, keeping everything organized so that it's easy to access when we are ready for class and I can just pull it and we can go. And then the challenge was COVID, which I know is everyone's challenge. You know, we had so many changes to our school this year and how things are typically ran. and trying to fit what I had already worked on into this new COVID world and scheduling and, changing a 7 bell to a 4 bell and being able to we had to take a break from going to out classes because of, a lot of the students were getting quarantined and then, just adjusting to all that. So that was a big challenge for all of us, but we're almost through the year. So my rationale for creating this 4-year plan was just continuing to maintain high standards for our students with significant disabilities. I want to make sure we are all going out to as many out classes as we can, and that they're receiving the same education as their typical peers. Also, that we're following the IDOE guidelines for the Certificate of Completion program. I wanted to make sure I was hitting each of those units, and by the time they graduate at 4 years, we have hit all those. So I wanted it organized out in a way that it was good, it was easy for the students, and then it was also helpful for our guidance staff as well. I've spent many hours with our guidance staff trying to plan out the schedule for the next school year. And this way we have it already organized for each grade. They just need the file, know which students are going in, and then they can plug them into those classes. So I wanted to make sure I was better organized and planning for transitioning our students. So when they move from 8th grade to their freshman year, the 8th grade, our essential skills teacher who works with those students already knows exactly what classes they are going to be in. It'll help with her IEP planning for goals for the next school year, and we can collaborate together. So that was my rationale for this. I have created a Google Doc of first, it shows this Indiana Certificate of Completion, or the course of study, and this has also been linked or shared with my guidance counselors, so they have access to this as well and know how to plan things out. Let's see if it's gonna go. All right, so this again is just, and you guys are probably all familiar with this, this is just the Indiana Certificate of Completion course of study. I just laid everything out to show how many units, and it's just a replica of what that is. So I have that to share with my guidance counselors. Oops, sorry. There we go. And then for freshman classes, so the out classes that we have selected for the freshman year is English 9, they'll take an elective, health and wellness, earth and space science, and then a career planning class. And then again, I have the link to the Google Doc that outlines that. It also has on there, I highlight once they meet that unit. So by taking health and wellness their freshman year, they have met that unit and we have completed that. So I have outlined all the classes. I'm also working on, as you can see, there are some blanks because I haven't quite established which teachers I'd like to work with, but I'm also labeling out exactly what teacher I would like for that class. So that we worked with them, we have their curriculum and activities already modified for the students, and we're ready to go each year. And also I'm building relationships with those teachers as well to continue with collaboration. So those are the freshman classes. For the sophomore classes, I have them going to English 10, US history, biology, and again, another elective. And here is the spreadsheet that I created for this group. And again, by their sophomore year, they have met their units for math, science, PE, and health and wellness. And I have that all highlighted to show which ones they have met. And again, the teachers who I would like to work with and continue working with to continue establishing relationships. For their junior classes, we are going out for English 11, environmental science, world history, and an elective. One of the, this is kind of where I've made it to with doing this. We have gone out, the class that started with their freshman year, we have followed those class for 3 years. And I have all that work modified for these classes and organized. This year we had added the history classes. For the first 2 years, we only went out for English and science. So this was our first year that we added world history and U.S. history to our classes that we're going out to. So I'm still building my resources and my modified assignments so that I have those organized and ready. But I haven't. So you'll see with my next group, I'll probably, with my seniors, I'm going to have less teachers because we haven't gone out to those senior level classes yet. Next year will be my first year. But here is my junior year spreadsheet. And as you can see, we have met math, science, social studies, PE, and health and wellness. All of those areas have been met by their junior year. We just have to finish their senior year. The English, employability, and electives were my last 3 areas to hit by their senior year. And then senior year, our plan, and this is, we'll have to see how this goes next year since we have not taken these classes yet. I may switch it around after we are, participating in the classes and I decide, integrated chemistry or physics isn't going to work for us. But we'll see. So as of right now, we've planned out English 12, US government, economics, an elective class, and then integrated chemistry and physics. And then here is my spreadsheet. You will see there's one area I'm still working with our guidance counselors. I think 1 unit short from what I had figured out of employability skills. So I was just meeting with them the other day just to kind of make sure I was hitting all those 10 employability units. But when I had completed this, I had only reached 9. So by their senior year, once we figure out where I need to add in that extra employability unit, we have met all of those units on the certificate course of completion, and they will be ready for their graduation. So my plan for next year is that I would like to continue working on our curriculum mapping. From what I've heard, we are going back to our 7 bell, and hopefully all of our PLCs will resume, as well as our staff meetings, and that time I can collaborate with the teachers to make sure that my map is aligned with theirs. I want to start brainstorming some ideas for the 18 to 20-year-old program. We collaborate a lot with Greenfield Central High School, and I know that was their capstone project this year, so I'm anxious to see kind of how they did and what areas they're working on, and to get some resources from them as well. I also thought I'd like to share some of the modified student work that I have done in the classes. So I have 5 examples we can go through. I don't know how I'm doing on time. We can do a couple of them depending on time.
Yeah, you're doing just fine.
Okay, great. So this was an assignment our students had. It was an air mass and fonts test. So whereas students had fill in the blank, I added multiple choice and they had to circle the answer. And then I had filled in some of the answers for them. So they only had to fill in the ones where there was 2 choices. And again, I added pictures versus words and just modified it as needed for those students. So that was for the Earth and Space Science class that we take. Another example I have, our students read To Kill a Mockingbird, and the regular ed had an activity on a character worksheet, or I think it was, it's something to do with characters. So I created a copy or the character description, and then they had to paste in the pictures of the characters. That was an English assignment example. This was we currently do not go out for math right now. I teach the applied algebra class in my room, and this was just an example of an assessment I did on labeling a graph. So we had talked about the different quadrants, and we cut those out, and they had to glue which areas of the quadrants they were in, and then what was the X and Y line. My 4th example is For English, they would do a vocabulary test or vocabulary words once a week. So I took, I believe it's 5. I think it's 5 words. Oh, nope, a little more. 7. I had 7 words. I think I varied depending on the words that were provided that year or that week. But I would kind of take out some of the words that they were on the vocabulary list. Again, this is the exact same words that their peers are getting. And then this was one of the tests that I created for the students. So we would find the definition, work with the students on a picture paired with that word, and then they had to take a test with their peers when their peers took their vocabulary test. I think that we had also worked on, we made flashcards. So I would cut the word with the definition for each student, and we would make flashcards to practice their flashcards for their vocab words. And then my last example is, I believe it's another English assignment. The students read the story Sounds of Thunder, and they had to do it was a pretty extensive worksheet on the story. So I created a worksheet on it where they had to kind of circle the characters in the story, answer questions on the setting, what happened in the beginning, and I paired it with words and what happened at the end, or sorry, pictures. So I paired the questions with some pictures and created that for them to have in their class. So I try to take, whatever the class is doing, and then create an assignment with them to go along with that. So that's just some examples, and that is it.
Thank you. You said, and all of you have done such a phenomenal job. And you said some really important things, and it's been echoed between each one of the presentations today. So I always like to pull together those pieces that can be takeaways. So first of all, that intentional collaboration and the importance of collaboration with colleagues, to Amy Zimmer's example, to your example, Kara, about building those relationships, to Jenna and Sherry's examples of, being really intentional about finding those champions and then building upon that. And that's really, really so important to be thinking about. How do we develop the relationships? Because we're developing relationships with our students and supporting them. And then we have to develop those collaborative relationships with our colleagues. And today has been just a shining example of that. From Jenna's example with Mr. Hutton to the leveraging the instructional coaches to the Amy Zimmer's example around leveraging the student teacher and really building that modeling right there, to Kara's example of just calling it out. We have to be intentional with that. And so I am so proud of each one of you on all of this hard work and this journey. When we called upon each one of you about a year and a little bit ago, I don't think any one of us could have envisioned how phenomenal today would be and how impactful all of your presentations have been locally, with your excellent leaders helping support that as well. So kudos to every single one of you. Before we leave this room, are there any other questions? We'll go back to the main room and join the larger group, and we'll walk through a couple other things and have time for questions there too. But I wanted to hold space if there was anything that you wanted to say or any questions that you might have. Yeah,
I just wanted to say I'm Katie Eastis, the Director of Student Services for the district where Kara Westerman teaches. And I just want to brag on her for a minute and say how proud I am of the work that she's putting in for her students. And we've all had an incredibly difficult year, but Kara really especially has had an incredibly difficult year. And for her to continue the amazing work she does with her students and be that champion in our school, just raising awareness and finding those teachers who are amazing at working with her students, and just the high expectations she has and the culture she's built in her classroom, in the school, and in our district. I just can't say enough. So great job, Kara.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And to add to her plate, she helped support the paraprofessional webinars for Project Success and was just a mentor to those paraprofessionals during a time when it's been needed even more than ever, supporting our support staff. So thank you all, and thank you to all of our leaders who have joined this. Thank you to Amy and Jenna and Jerry and Kara for jumping in and sharing today, taking time to meet with us, taking time to join the sessions, developing out such important examples that can be just a shining example across the state. So I appreciate that. I just wanted to take this personal time to thank each one of you. So very much appreciate it.